Yeah.
This is the Ross Kaminsky Show.
You're a great American.
Now, Ross Kaminsky.
Come on, man.
On Denver's talk station, 630 KHOW.
All right, good morning. I'm Ross. Thanks so much for being with me. We're starting off on YouTube this morning. If you go to youtube.com and type in Ross Kaminsky, Kaminsky, you should find my live stream. I'm gonna re-aim the camera here a little bit, Shannon, if that works, because I'm actually gonna stand up for this part of the show just for fun. Now, let me just start off by saying, rest in peace, Cloris Leachman. I don't think I have that much more to say about her. Shannon, do you have memories?
Would the doctor care for a brandy before retiring?
No. Thank you.
Some warm milk? Perhaps?
No, thank you very much. No thanks.
Ovaltine.
Nothing. Thank you. I'm a little tired.
Then I will say good night.
Good night.
Oh, my gosh. Didn't she do a hit on The Office, too? She was on The Office at some point. She's everywhere. But, oh, really? Broken Lizard, guys? And you know what? Anybody who is funny enough to work with Mel Brooks, just, that's talent. Anyway, Cloris Leachman passed away. Frau Blucher. Are we supposed to have a horse noise or something? Oh, there you go. In fact, Shannon, you could drop those in over the course of the show whenever you feel like it, just to remind us. All right. So with that very silly start, I want to talk a little bit about this market insanity that's going on. And I think I've got a pretty good handle on what's happening and why. Unlike a lot of people who are talking about all this, I don't really have a lot of value judgment to put on it, in the sense of saying some participants in the story are good people and some are bad people or anything like that. It's just markets. So, oh my gosh, American Airlines up $10. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit specifically about GameStop, but also broadly about other things that are going on in this same mode. And if you've got any questions for me about it, then feel free you can actually call the studio if you want at 303-713-TALK. That's 303-713-8255. And I mean specifically if you want to talk about what's going on in financial markets right now. With all the crazy short squeeze in some of these companies, the big sell-off in the market yesterday, which might have been a little bit related, although I do think also there's just a bunch of profit-taking going on. But if you got questions, text me at 57739, call me at 303-713-TALK, and we will talk about it. So let's just talk about GameStop first for a moment, because this is what so much of the talk is about, even though there are a whole bunch of other companies out there that are behaving similarly when it comes to stock price. I note in particular, as I mentioned briefly on the show yesterday, this company called COS that makes headphones. And let me just get a chart here. 5 days ago, COS was $3.50 a share. It closed yesterday at 58, and it's trading right now at 151. Got it? $3 a share on, let's call it $4 a share this Monday. 3 days ago, $4 a share, trading now 160 in the pre-market. So let's talk about why this stuff is happening, and then we can talk a little bit about what I think comes next. So you hear all this talk about short sellers, and people like to talk about short sellers as if they're evil people, but they're not. They're just people who make a bet on a stock because based on their own analysis, they think that the company is not doing very well or that the current stock price is not justified. And I said or because it's possible that a current stock price could be not justified even if a company is doing well. For example, some people might say Tesla, which just reported their first ever annual profit, and the company seems to be doing quite well, that doesn't necessarily mean that you could justify the current stock price. And it's no different than really any other fundamental decision about investing. You think about a company, you do your research, you think about their future cash flows and their future profits and maybe whether they would be taken over by some other company. And you decide based on your own analysis what you think this company is worth. And if the stock is trading a lot lower than where you think what you think it's worth or will soon be worth, then you buy it. And although it's more of a quote unquote professional style of trade, if you think the company is worth a lot less than where it's trading right now, you short it. And I've talked about this a lot on the show, so I'll do this just briefly in case anyone missed it. Shorting a stock simply means selling it first and hoping to buy it back later at a lower price. And I think the actual mechanics of how it works will really help you understand. It is just another version of buy low, sell high. It's just you do the selling first. And again, I'll do this real quick. Let's say, a stock is trading for $100 a share and you think it's worth $60 a share. So what you do is you go find someone who has the stock, you borrow it from them, you go, and let's just talk about one share of stock. Okay, and keep the math super easy. Let's just talk about one share of stock. You go borrow one share of stock from someone who owns it. You take that share of stock that you borrowed and you go sell it in the marketplace at $100. Now you have $100 in your brokerage account, but you owe somebody the one share of stock. Over time, it turns out your prediction is right and the stock price drops to $60 a share, just like you thought it would. And you take 60 of the $100 that you got for selling the stock the first time and buy a share of stock with that $60, give the share of stock back to the person that you borrowed it from. So now you don't owe anybody anything and you have the $40 remaining in your brokerage account, right? So what you did was you bought it at 60 and sold it at 100, but you just didn't do it in that order. But your profit is exactly the same as somebody who bought it at 60 and then later sold it at 100 and just did it in the usual order. The only occasional difference in profits in this situation is that depending on what you're borrowing, sometimes you have to pay a fee to the people you're borrowing the stock from in order for them to loan it to you. And the trickier a situation gets, the more likely it is that you will have to pay a fee. So when you get in situations like GameStop right now, where lots and lots of people want to borrow the stock, then sometimes the fees can be quite large. And I think GameStop, the fee is something like, 25 or 50% of the value of the stock on an annual basis. So it's very, very expensive to borrow GameStop right now. But what can happen with some of these companies that professional short sellers believe are overvalued, if a lot of them crowd into a trade, they can end up borrowing a pretty big percentage of what's available to be borrowed. And also, you end up with this very concentrated position with just a few big firms having massive short positions in this company. And that puts them at a lot of risk. I mean, think about this for a minute. I mean, GameStop, these people had massive short positions that they put on as the stock went up. But they had massive short positions with the stock at, let's say, $40 a share. And this morning, it's trading $450 a share. They have massive short positions. And the problem, or at least a characteristic of short selling, is that the most you can make is whatever you sold the stock for, right? because the lowest the stock price can go to is zero, and normally it doesn't even go to zero. I mean, if a company goes fully bankrupt and eventually their stock gets wiped out and it's completely worthless, you know, then it'll be zero, but it'll take a very, very long time. Often, even after a company files for bankruptcy and everyone knows that the stock will eventually be worthless, a lot of times the stock actually does keep trading, usually for a few cents a share, sometimes as much as 50 cents or $1 a share, just because there are so many people who are out there who are short the stock that they want to buy it back just to take the position off because it's not worth waiting for the last 25 or 50 cents. And so a stock that really is worth zero or will be zero will trade for 25 or 50 cents. Anyway, short sellers are not bad people. I realize folks love hating short sellers because short sellers appear to be betting against a company's success. And it is possible, though rare, for short sellers to have a big enough impact on a company's share price that it could actually affect how the company does, like whether the company can raise money and survive. That level of impact of short selling is unusual, but not impossible. Of course, the other side of the coin could be what's happening right now. Gamestop trading over $400 a share. Amc Theaters, how about this? Amc Theaters stock has gone up from about $4 to about $20 in a few days. AMC, the company themselves, just sold a whole bunch of stock to raise money just before all this happened, around $4 a share. And now the stock is 20. All the people who bought that stuff are real happy right now. But here's what happens when you get big concentrated short positions. And remember, I guess I didn't finish this point. When you buy a stock at 20, let's say, there's theoretically no limit how much you can make, right? The stock could double, triple, quadruple, quintuple. It could go up tenfold. It could go up 100-fold. I mean, heck, GameStop did. GameStop went from 4 to 400. So you could make an unlimited amount of money, but when you're short stock, all you can make is the amount that you sold it for because the stock can't go below zero. And it makes it a rather dangerous play, and that is why short sellers, professional short sellers, tend to be people who do a lot of homework and really, at least really believe that they understand the business that they are taking a position in. What happened with GameStop and what appears to be happening with some other companies, including COS and AMC, Nokia, yep, it's happening with Nokia, BlackBerry as well. AMC looks like it's down this morning a little bit now. I'm really tempted to short GameStop this morning, just a little bit. We'll see. What can happen is, so let's say you shorted a stock at 20. And you think, you hope to make 10 or 15 on it, which is a big percentage return, right? You think you're going to make 50%, 75% on your money because you think the stock is way overpriced. But now it starts going up. Now it's 30. Now it's 40. And on paper, you are getting your head handed to you. You're down 100% effectively from the amount of money that you had committed to the original trade, or the amount of money you thought was your maximum potential profit on the original trade. And just like anybody could be forced out of a trade if they're losing enough money, you force these people, when they can't afford more losses, to start buying. And I made this bad analogy yesterday of people, they're in a road race and they're driving west to east, and suddenly they see all these cars coming at them super high speed, going east to west, and they realize, uh-oh, I guess I've been, driving in the wrong race, and now I got to turn around and catch up. Meanwhile, all these other cars that passed them are way ahead of them already and going really fast, and now they're turning around trying to catch up, and now you've got, You know, instead of 3 cars in a road race going one way, you got 10 cars in a road race going the other way. And that is a terrible analogy and proves why I remain the president of the Bad Analogy Club. But one of the very interesting things happening here is that, okay, so let me just back up and talk about why this thing is going up. There is a very large, like 2-3 million person online community that is involved in sort of social media conversations on Reddit and elsewhere, but Reddit is the most well-known one right now, a subreddit called Wall Street Bets. But think of it kind of like a Facebook group. For those of you who don't know anything about Reddit, think of it something like a Facebook group. 4.5 million on that group now. Right. So I think it was 3 million 2 days ago. It's going up like everything else. But they talk about things. And one of the things that they figured out was, okay, GameStop, they added a new guy to the board, who is a guy who made this website, Chewy.com, this pet supply website, into quite a success. So they think, okay, we've got this new creative director who's talking about things that GameStop might do to adapt their business model from selling physical games on DVDs to more of an online retailer kind of thing. And they think, all right, maybe there's a little hope for the company there. And then they also see this massive short position. And they say, this is a perfect opportunity, because not only do they think that GameStop probably has a better future than is currently priced in the stock, but they also think if they can start running it up, they can cause a short squeeze. So what they do is not only do they start buying the stock, which raises the price and causes the people who are short it to have to go buy it to cover because they can't afford any more losses. But another smart thing these people did was they went and bought out-of-the-money call options. Now, this gets really quite technical, but it might be interesting enough, especially since this story is just everywhere, not only on financial press, but every news outlet is talking about it, that I may take a little time in the next segment of the show explaining how when small traders spend fairly small amounts of money buying out-of-the-money options, and I'll explain what that means in the next segment, it can just add more fuel to the fire of forcing people to buy stock. People who don't really want to buy stock, people who don't really care about the stock, but they're forced to by their existing positions, and it turns into GameStop at $450 a share. I'll explain more right after this.
If you missed it earlier, we have your chance to win $1,000